Hey Nicola, how are you?
Hey Sherin, hey Rachel, how are you?
Good. Thanks very much for coming on, Nicola. You're very, very good.
Thanks. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
So
This is really weird, isn't it? Cause being on a screen, like, woo.
trying to do the Zoom. Usually we're real confident because we're behind the mic in the
Nobody can see us.
in the studio. Nobody can see us. Yes, we're just been able to banter and mess with all the computer things.
And have a little dance.
We're doing Real Deal here, and just to let the sister sheds know as well, taking a cheaper option. We don't have microphones in studios, but we definitely want to do interviews. So we're starting here.
Absolutely.
Forced Zoom for the Sister Shed page and the Sister Shed YouTube. We're actually going to be the first on our YouTube, Nicola. Round of applause for that.
Yeah.
Can we just address my backdrop? My little boy was 4 yesterday, and that's a Toy Story backdrop. I don't have characters painted on my wall. It's just, he won't let me take it down. So just to address that. I'm like looking at Mr. Potato Head giving me the eye there, and I'm like, oh.
It's actually her bedroom. It's her boyfriend. She has a kind of thing for...
into that kind of shit.
So, sure, look, they say anything goes, do you know what I mean? So, well done, Deb. Loving the
different stroke for different folk, you know yourself.
That's it. That's enough. Too much information, cause too much. So, listen, first of all, Nicola, as Rachel said, thanks so much for joining us today. And I know we're going to be talking about your journey with breast cancer.
Yeah.
So, I suppose the first thing I'd like to ask, you know, because we're not 100%, we're just doing this free rolling, the whole lot of us, so we're just going for it. So, Nicola, darling, when were you actually diagnosed? Actually, Nicola, can I ask how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was 28 years old.
Jesus.
Very young.
Yeah.
And when was that? Now we're trying to get your age, are you? What year was that?
It was actually 9 years ago.
Wow.
So would that mean...
Oh, no, wait. How old am I? Yeah, 9 years ago, yeah.
So would that mean you're in remission for the last 9 years? Because I am totally clueless when it comes to this diagnosis. I know a lot of people with different diagnoses and stuff, but is that full on remission now for 9 years? Or?
Yeah, thank God. Like, so they never actually say well, for me, they never actually said I'm in remission. They just said the cancer is gone, and just that I would still have to go for the yearly checks. It went from 3 to 6 months to a yearly. After 5 years, I got a yearly. But
brilliant.
Yeah. So,
and was that long after you were diagnosed with breast cancer? Did it? So listen, I suppose
take it from the start. Yeah. Did you start to feel unwell? How did you discover that you had breast cancer? Did you find a lump or a bump, or what way did it come across? Like, how did it?
No,
I suppose, how did you come across it?
I was working full time, and you know, without giving a sob story, my husband's brother had died by suicide, and my brother had died from sudden adult death syndrome within 6 months of each other. That had happened in September 2011. Then my brother died in April 2012, and then I was kind of like a snowball effect. It was like I was working full time, my husband was working. And you know yourself, sometimes you're just tired. There's no reason as to why you're tired. You're a mammy, you're a wife, you're a whatever.
Yeah.
You're a partner, whatever you are, but you can just be tired. So I never thought anything of it. Like, I was just like, oh, get on with it. But I remember it being Father's Day, and I was lying in the bed. I was after having a shower, and I was after doing my cream. And my husband says to me, your breast looks at a weird shape. And I was like, fuck off. Do you know what I mean?
As you do. You're not getting anything, get away.
You just want to touch it.
You want to have a feel.
Yeah, but he was like, no, that doesn't look right. So I sat up and I was like feeling, and I was like, oh, it's a bit bumpy. And I was like, oh, I think I feel one lump. And then I was like, oh no, I feel two. So I was like, oh, I'm sure it's grand. And the first thing I thought of was, I'll do a pregnancy test. Because I always got lumpy boobs when I was pregnant. I always got milk really early in the pregnancy, and then it was kind of okay. So I was like, oh God, like imagine I was pregnant, thinking to
Plus you're
myself.
only 28 as well. So that's
Yeah.
that was going through my mind, yeah.
I was like thinking I'm gonna have another baby, you know, this is great. And he was like, just go to the doctor. So the doctor done a pregnancy test. No, we're not pregnant. And he said to me, it's probably just a cyst, your grand. And I was like, oh, all right. So Alan collected me and he says to me, and how'd you get on? I said, oh, he says it's just a cyst, not to be worried about it. And Alan goes, so what are you going to do? And I was like, nothing. He was like, absolutely not. His mum had breast cancer.
Right.
So like, no, not accepting that. Went back in. And the doctor was kind of like, oh, right, well, to appease me, I think he says, I'll send a referral, but it's not urgent. So I was like, yeah, that's fine. So waiting for, because you're under 50, you have to go to St. James's.
Right.
So I was waiting on an appointment, and he had said to me after about 4 weeks, did you hear that? And I was like, no, nothing. And he was like, well, give them a call. So I was like, oh, I'm wasting their time. But I rang them, and anyway, they were like, oh, look, we'll get you in on the 23rd of July. So, oh, yeah, that's grand. So I remember the night before, I had never thought about cancer, ever. Never thought for a minute.
I was going to actually ask you that whole time you were totally like, this is not cancer. You weren't one bit worried.
Never entered my mind. And I remember going to the cinema the night, my dad took the 3 kids the night before my appointment. He said to me, look, I'll keep them overnight. You and Alan rest, go into the hospital early, and my appointment was for 8:15. He says, you go in and you won't have to worry about the kids. So I was like, happy days, we'll go to the cinema. And honest to God, on my 3 kids' lives, no word of a lie, we're sitting in the cinema, and you know the way it shows you the advertisements for films?
Yeah.
There was none of that. There was 2 ads, and there were now the signs of breast cancer, and it was the Marie Keaton Foundation. And
oh my God.
As God is my witness, I turned around to my husband and I said to him, I have breast cancer. And he said, no, you don't. And do you know the 8 signs? I had 7.
Oh my God.
What are the 7 signs?
I'm actually getting goosebumps here. I'm like, what is it?
So I had leaky bowel, which would explain why I had leakage. I had an infected nipple. I had puckering. I had the lumps. I had a lump under my arm. They were tender. I can't read. I'm trying to think, but I know I had. Yeah. And I was like, and I said to him, I says, I know I have cancer. And he was like, no, this is just like, no, you're fine. So anyway, his mum, I had said to his mum, do you want to come with us? We'll go into town after it. And she was like, yeah, lovely. So went to my appointment the next day. They asked me all my symptoms. I was telling them. He had a check. He says, because of your age, an ultrasound was recommended. So I was like, yeah, perfect. He says, we don't do a mammogram if you're under 35, I think. I think that's now reduced, or under 40. I think it's now reduced to 35. He says, we'll do an ultrasound that will show clearer images of your breast tissue. So I was like, yeah, fine. And I have von Willebrand's, which is a form of haemophilia. I don't produce factor VIII, which clots your blood. So I went for an ultrasound, and halfway through the ultrasound, the girl says, I'm just going to go out and get the doctor. Still never thought anything was wrong. So the doctor came in, and the nurse came in, and she was like, we're going to do a biopsy. And I was like, oh yeah, no problem. And I was like, actually, can you bleed from that? And she was like, yeah, you'll have a bit of bleeding. So I explained my medical condition. She was like, do you know what? We're going to get you a platelet transfusion, and then we're going to come back and do the biopsy. So I was like, oh, grand. So myself, Alan, and Maureen, his mum, were walking back, and the nurse was with us, chatting away, lovely girl. And went back, sat in the area, and I got called, and the doctor says, I'm just waiting on Mr. Alizewi, that was the consultant, to come down. He's up in theatre. So I was like, oh yeah, fine. Still.
I was just going to say, still at that. Is that you in general, Nicola? Would you be very laid back and easy, or Because I think at that stage I'd be
at that stage I'd be losing my mind.
Yeah, I'd be gone.
Honest to God, I never for an instance. Now, bear in mind, the night before, I bet you I I never thought. So I got called up, Mr. Alizewi called me, introduced himself, and he says to me, I'm afraid it's not good news. And I said to him, before you go any further, I said, my husband and mother-in-law are outside in the room, will you go out and get them?
Yeah.
Alan and Maureen came in and sat down. Alan said I was great. He says, Jesus, he remembers thinking to himself, this one's overreacting, she's mad. But he sat down and Mr. Alizewi says, I'm just explaining to Nicola, it's not good news. We found 2 lumps and we're going to do biopsies and a mammogram. And I remember him holding me hand, Mr. Alizewi holding me hand, and he says to me, you know, it's okay to cry. And I was like, yeah, okay, no problem.
You're just in a state of shock at that stage.
Yeah, it was just all over my head. So I remember saying to him, how sure are you, like? And he says, well, I don't like to say for certain, but he said, I'd be quite happy to say nearly 100%. So he said, look, you're going to go get something to eat. You're going to come back, get your treatment, and we're going to do a biopsy and a mammogram.
Right, and so treatment as in, was that the plating course?
The platelet transfusion, yeah. So that way it would help any bleeding that would occur. So I just remember the room just seemed to fill. I remember looking at Alan's mum, and her face was just like, she was shocked.
Yeah.
Alan crying, I started to cry, and the room just filled with like my hematology team, the breast cancer nurse, the doctor was coming in and out, and it just seemed to happen so fast. We had a bite to eat. I remember ringing my boss and saying to my boss, I can't come in. I was meant to go to work after. And I said to her, oh, I won't be in. And she was like, oh, well, you were due in at like 1 o'clock. And I said to her, oh yeah, but do you think I have cancer? She started crying on the phone, and I was like, look, I have to go. Like, she was in shock. I was just rambling.
Yeah.
So do you think, can I just ask a quick question there? So, you know, when them words are said, I'm 100% you have, I can say I'm 100% you have cancer. In breast cancer in any way, I'm imagining, now I don't know, this is what I'm trying to ask, I'm imagining for me, I'm screaming. I'm going to be like panicking, screaming. Do you think like it was just pure shock, or I'm going to do this, I'm okay? Like,
I actually felt relief. Like, I can still remember that feeling, thinking, thank God it's not Alan or any of the kids here, it's me.
Wow.
I still to this day, I'm so glad it was me.
Right.
That is an amazing, I can't believe you've said that. I've never heard anybody say that before. That's wow. There must be someone.
I think there's a bit more to the experience of the journey, because when I spoke to Nicola about this journey, she had said to me, will you introduce it differently? And I was like, we just introduced, we spoke to a girl that has breast cancer, and she's a survivor of breast cancer.
Yeah.
And Nicola turned around and said to me, no, go on, Nicola, because it was your introduction.
So I was saying, when you were introduced to me, like, I think a lot of people who survive cancer, it's down to luck, but I wanted people to realise there is benefits to having a breast cancer or any type of cancer diagnosis.
Why is that, Nicola?
I found myself again. I was lost for so long and didn't even realise. I was probably lost all my life. After I had cancer, I found purpose for myself. I knew I'm don't sound pig-headed, but I knew I was a good mother. I knew I was a good partner. I knew I would do anything for anyone, but I would miss so many events because I'd be afraid to leave the house if the house wasn't clean. I would be afraid that maybe somebody would come in and go, oh my God, the door to her house, like her floors aren't sparkling, or the windows, like stuff that was so stupid. Or, you know, even like friends that, like, I'd be so afraid to say no to them. Like, friends, afraid to say no to friends. Like, do you want to go here? I wouldn't want to go there, but I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah. Like, I'm a grown woman. Why am I afraid to say no?
Yeah. And I do remember another thing you had mentioned to me, Nicola, and even you mentioned it at the beginning of the interview, that Alan's brother he had moved on his journey, he passed over, and also a brother. And I remember the first time I spoke to you, it said something, there was so much panic and grief, and that's not to take grief away from anyone, but I'm saying, I remember you saying something to me like, it kind of took everyone aback. Oh my God, we've all just been consumed in all of what's gone on. And right now, presently, I'm actually been diagnosed with cancer. So now this is another double whammy. And oh my God, remember you saying something like that?
Yeah, I remember thinking this is the third time, like I'm adding to the grief. Like I felt a sense of guilt in a way as well, but I did still feel relief. It was like, no, it's me, I'm grand. But I did think, Jesus, like how much more are we going to get?
Yeah.
Do you know, like, and as I said, it's not to be, oh God, poor them, but I did feel like at times it was like, why is this happening to us all at this time? And we were only newly married as well, like
very hard.
So young, like 28,
Yeah.
3 kids.
Yeah.
And so sorry, because I did cut you off when the doctors come in then, and because we're just trying to get the experience. Not that I'm not gonna lie, it's not something I ever want to experience, and I'm sure anyone listening never wants to have to experience.
Maybe somebody that will be looking, this might be on that journey, they might be starting it, they might be halfway through it, and they'll get something from this, or you know, you never know who's going to see this. So you know, it'll go where it's meant to go, and it'll touch whoever it's meant to touch. So just to get a big picture of it, like from start to finish. But I have to say, that comment that you were just relieved that was you, I think, well done. You're some woman. That's absolutely amazing.
Doesn't that sound very adaptable? You're kind of like, Jesus, if it was Sonny or Ollie, or you know,
absolutely.
So,
or even like my partner, like I'd say he'd fall apart. He wouldn't be able to cope. He'd have himself dead and buried. You know, so I can get where you're coming from, but for you to actually say it and think it in that moment, I have to say, I don't think I would think that in that moment. I think, well done, amazing.
No, and I, as I said, I still think to this day, I'm so glad it was me. Like it was easier to approach. Now it wasn't all, like as I said to Sherin, it wasn't all sunshine and lollipops.
Of course.
Hard times. I mean, I went back the following week after having the biopsies, and they had said to me, right, this is the plan. It is cancer, and we're going to do surgery. You're going to have a couple of scans. No, you're going to have a couple of scans. You're going to have surgery, and then you're going to have chemo and radio. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And he was like, look, you need a mastectomy because your tumor is about 4 centimeters, and there's actually 2 tumors in the one breast. So I was like, oh yeah, that's grand. So I was HER2, estrogen, progesterone positive. So I was like, yeah, like these are doing this every day of the week. As sad as that sounds, he knows what he's talking about. Like, I'm also a reconstruction, so we'll do all that on the one day. I was like, yeah, grand. Had a scan, and it said to me, we'll only call you if there's a problem. I was like, oh, grand. I had said to the kids, oh, the doctor will only ring if there's a problem. I was in having a bite of lunch with Alan's mum, and Kyle, my oldest child, came in and he said, Mum, the hospital is on. And I knew by his face, because he had remembered.
There was going to be a problem, to be a call. Yeah.
And
how old was he, Nicola, at the time?
He was 10.
So he was Ollie straight away, like he's gonna know.
Freak out.
Like Kyle was 10, Colleen was 8, and Cole had just turned 4. So they had all only gone 10, 8 and 4 in the space of 4 or 5 months before that. So she was like, look, can you come in tomorrow? And I was like, I can come in any day. And she was like, well, I need you to come in. That was a chill. She's like, I need you to come in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We need to do more scans, more tests, blah, blah, blah. I was like, fine, done all that. Went back on the Tuesday again of the following week. And she says to me, at this stage, we're into August. And she says to me,
were you panicking at this stage, Nicola, thinking, I need to get it out? Like, that's all I can, I don't know.
What was the time frame? Like, so how long was this kind of going from the time you were diagnosed till you got the phone call to?
The 23rd from, so it was the Father's Day in June. I got the first biopsies the 23rd of July. It was confirmed the 30th of July. And then we were into the first week in August. And when my tumour was taken, like when they done the biopsies and the scans on the 23rd of July, it measured about 4 to 5 centimetres. I had a scan the 1st or 2nd of August, and I went back for the results, and I remember them saying to me, it's over 11 centimetres at this stage.
Jesus.
In the space of, how long was that?
Less than 2 weeks.
And how did you feel about that? Did you freak out then?
No, like maybe I did, but I don't think I did. And Alan always said to me, you always just took it as it was coming. Like it was like, yeah, move on, get me to where I have to be. So I remember saying to him, well, I have a holiday like with the kids. And he was like, well, we're going to cancel your surgery. You're going to start your chemo on this date, but I want you to meet the oncologist, Mr. Kennedy. And I met him. Man is mad as a brush. You know, if he wanted the hospital opened at 4 o'clock in the morning, he got the hospital opened at 4. But I remember saying to him, oh, I have to go away at the end of the year with the kids. Like, I hadn't told them at this stage.
Yeah.
When I met Mr. Kennedy. And they had known that there was something going on, but I hadn't said to them, I have cancer.
Yeah.
So I remember saying to them, Mr. Kennedy, oh, we have a holiday. And he says to me, no problem. Go away, have a great time on your holiday. He says, but you'll come home to die.
Oh, God.
And that was the first time I actually choked. I was like, you know, I was like, he couldn't make that. I felt like, why didn't he say, like, oh, no, that's not the right thing to do. Like, he literally just said to me, no problem, go away, have a great time, you'll come home to die.
Oh,
and I was okay, no. So I came home
28, like, I can't get past even the age.
No.
Yeah. I came home and I said to Alan, we're going to tell the kids. And I remember saying to Maureen, my mother-in-law, I said, will you be there when we tell them? Because they knew Maureen had been there. They were seeing that their nanny was healthy and happy again and everything was. And Maureen was there, told the kids, and they were like, are we still going on holidays? And I was like, well, the holiday is cancelled as well, like, because Mammy has to start treatment. And Cole, the youngest fellow, was like, so will you be able to take your boobs off and leave them on the bed like men?
The innocence of a child, you have to love it. Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I was like, I don't think so. And he was like,
son, I don't know.
I don't know. And he was like, oh, all right, I'm just going to go back to the PlayStation. He thought
resilient. Yeah.
And Kyle and Colleen followed Alan now, obviously, like, he needed a minute himself. And they said to him, why don't you just bring us on holidays and leave Mum here with Nanny? He had their priorities right. But yeah, no, after that then I started chemo. I had a horrific time on chemo. People say day 4, day 5. I literally used to feel like when it would burn, I would be violently ill from the beginning. I remember that the hardest part of this for me, I never cared about losing my hair. Never bothered me about losing my breast. So ill one day, and I said to myself, I'm not doing this anymore. I couldn't. I had spent maybe 7-8 weeks in hospital on and off. Like, I'd come home for 2 or 3 days, then I'd get chemo again, then I'd be back in hospital for maybe 5-6 days. And it was just constant. And I remember one day I was sitting in the bathroom and I was getting sick. And Carl came in to me, and I had put him back to bed twice and come in the 3rd time. And I had said to myself, I'm not doing that anymore. I can't. I'm giving them no quality of life because I'm always ill. They're getting traced from, bear in mind, Cole. Yeah, so Cole had just started in Ninon Yoga, like junior infants. And I remember him saying to me, Mum, I'll stay with you for as long as you need me. And I was thinking to myself, you selfish bitch, you are prepared to stop your treatment and give up, and you have like a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old and 10-year-old that need you.
Nicola, very hard for you.
But
very
that was
hard.
the time I kind of felt. After that, I still was in hospital, in and out. I had a mastectomy and a lymph nodes removed in the February. And then I had a couple of people don't realise that reconstruction doesn't always work. I've had 7 reconstruction surgeries. I really should have done more homework on it. I had a lateral dorsal flap reconstruction. It's where they remove the muscle in your back rotate it around into your breast sac and put an implant in to make it. Mine healed under my armpit, so I literally rolled down my back, in under my armpit and in the breast wall. It's
so for you, Nicola, that part of when they said we're removing the breast, is it at that point of your life, is that where it's like, you know what, I don't care, just get me well and take whatever you want? Or is it like, oh, here, you can't take me boobs, like, you know, like what is that like? Because I don't know. I think for me, I'd just be like, I just want to get well. I really
chop me arm off. I don't care. Like,
Do you know, the boobs never bothered me ever. No. That's not to say that I won't be the same for anyone else. Hair never bothered me. I barely wore my wig. I wore a lot of the scarves and stuff. And I remember a coach was saying to me, David, your wig is ridiculous. Don't wear that, because I was always like that, you know, scratching because it was low. So I used to just go around with nothing on, like bald hair.
Fair play to you, because I'm a hairdresser, Nicola, and I get an awful lot of ladies in that are in remission, or the hair is growing back, or you know, they've got to start in treatment, they can't get colour anymore, or whatever it might be. Like, I'd have an awful lot of ladies and they find it really, really hard. And for me as a hairdresser, I get it, you know, an awful lot of these ladies, their hair is their crown and glory, but in the back of my head when I'm doing that, I'm like, they're still sitting here like it's only hair. So I have to say, even as a hairdresser, I don't think the hair would bother me, because like that, the fancy scarves can be lovely and wigs, and
at the same time, for me, as much as I would want to say that, oh, I don't think the hair or the boobs, as a woman, I think as well, there's still a massive mental block there.
Yeah, I get it.
Oh my God, my hair, like, we go mad to get it right. Sometimes, do you know what it is, again, and for me, always talking about gratitude, it's the smallest things of even having gratitude for that. Do we forget?
Yeah.
We forget how, you know, we just take so much for granted. So much. You hear me, boobs, it's all there. And I have to say, Nicola, even talking to you and listening to you saying like they're like going to have to do a vasectomy, and you're like, okay, and I'm not worried about my hair. Okay. It's something that we just don't think about.
No.
So I wanted to try keep it as normal as possible, but also make it fun for the kids. And I remember saying I didn't want it to be like, oh, poor Nicola Guerrine has cancer. And I remember I wanted to be me to let people know. So I had social media at the time. And I remember putting up a post, and I actually felt embarrassed saying the word cancer.
Right.
So I remember putting up a post, and I went along the lines of, before I lose me hair to chemo, does anyone have any ideas of what we could do? Because I wanted the kids to feel it. So they had picked a colour of what they would write.
How do you even think of that when you're going through that? Like, that's mind blowing. That's amazing.
Yeah. I had my friend Amy Delves as a hairdresser, and I remember ringing her and saying to her, I want to just do something wild for the kids, let them do it. So we went with a mohawk. Kyle picked purple hair, Cole picked blue, pink.
Wow.
Mohawk. Then I went down to the boys' barbers, and he shaved all their favourite designs.
Fair play to you.
And I remember going for my treatment. Cole had started school on the Thursday, and my chemo was the Friday. And I remember walking in, and Mr. Kennedy, man, didn't mince his words. There was a nurse with long red curly hair, and he shouts over the chemo wards. He says, Caroline, that was her name. He says, Mrs. Guerrine is going to take the look off your hair. Look a horse. Oh God.
But I have to say, Nicola, do you know what? I'm cracking up now, because we just have that. I'm looking at there's 3 minutes left on the Zoom. But I have to say, Nicola, at first when you said to me, you know, it's the benefits, I think for me, what I'm hearing is that it, like you said, it just gave you a lease of life, and it said, you know what? I'm going through what I'm going through, and I'm always someone that talks about the present, and we can't sometimes unlive what we're living. So, and I think I'm saying that now, but if I was in your shoes, I think I would, I don't know. I honestly haven't how I would take it.
Everyone's journey is different. And that's why I said they're my benefits and my worth, because
very brave woman
feel that way. Like, that I had to have a full hysterectomy then the following year after having the mastectomy. And that was what got to me. That's what kind of set
The
me back.
hardest. Yeah.
I always wanted loads of children. Wanted a house full of kids. I wanted them to be around each other all the time. And I got 3. And do you know what used to bug the life out of me? And I don't think it's fair that anyone ever says this. They used to say to me, "Aren't you lucky you have the 3?" I am very lucky. That shouldn't be what I was only allowed. Do you know?
Absolutely. Well done.
And do you know when people say, now again, this is my thing and this doesn't apply, and people might say, "Oh, well, I like that." But see when people say,
love, so yeah.
When people say, "Oh, you beat cancer." No, I didn't beat cancer. I got lucky, because the people that died from cancer didn't choose to not beat it. They were just fortunate. Their luck didn't come at the right time for them. Do you know, I just got lucky. I didn't beat. I wasn't a warrior. I wasn't any of that. I was very lucky.
I have to say, darling, you did handle it with very much so.
Definitely a warrior. Definitely a warrior.
But I get what you're saying. You know,
absolutely.
Everyone is lucky, and I suppose more of a blessing that was put upon you, and thank God you're still here. But that doesn't take away the journey. And what I'm hearing is that you handle that journey the best as a very strong woman. That's not to say me or any other woman that hasn't, that does anything with that, but I've just taken a lot of inspiration from the fact that you got there and you're sitting with us today, and it's absolutely lovely to have met you and talked to you today, and I'm so blessed that you came on.
Yeah,
and you know what? If I took anything from tonight, I would be one of them people. I can't walk out the door till me washing is hung out, till me floors are mopped. So do you know what? Life is too short. Feck the floors, feck the washing. Like, I took that. So do you know what? No, it's ridiculous, because that's an obsessive thing for me. So I think you're an absolute powerhouse. I think you're a warrior. I think well done.
And we're so glad that you chose to share that story with the Sister Sheds. Really,
and I hope anybody that this reaches, that if they might need it to hear it, they might take strength from it, it'll take courage, whatever it is they need to take from it, whatever it might be. I just think you're absolutely amazing, and I'm really after enjoying myself.
Thanks, ladies. And anyone that is starting out on their journey, and unfortunately there will be somebody that will, look for the positives. Don't focus on the bad, because there's